giving some background on myself. My name is Joseph. I have been in the nutraceutical health and wellness space for over 20 years. It's been a lifelong passion of mine. Coming from East LA, actually not far from here, in Boyle Heights, I was raised in a place that didn't really consider health and food and nutrition as, on a daily basis. Education just was lacking, and there wasn't a whole lot of options that were healthy, And I damaged myself pretty good. My digestion was messed up by the time I was 10 years old, to the point where it was difficult for me to keep going to school. I had exposure to black mold and to yeasts, and so I definitely had some issues with my health from a young age. I had a car accident that knocked out a few ribs, and the doctors, HMO or whatever, didn't want to give an X-ray or whatever for whatever reason. I didn't really figure out that I had ribs out until I was in my 30s, and finally got a chiropractor to put those back in, and started to really heal my body. But it was a long journey, and I was fresh out of high school when I decided to work in mental health. I got licensed by California State Licensing Board. I was in the highest risk facilities in California State for high-risk developmentally handicapped adults in particular that would otherwise need to be institutionalized, but we ran residential care facilities. I was trained in crisis prevention intervention training, and by police departments and by medical staff for administering medications. We had to put clients in holds and restrain them, and every now and then 5150, and it was a hard job. I loved my work. The staff was shit, and the clients were really great. It was usually the staff causing the problem, to be honest. And so I have a lot of background in pharmacology and in psychiatric, treatments and mental health in general. I come from a family of addicts. My mom and my stepfather both were addicted to alcohol and cocaine and heroin. So I come from a family, grew up in AA and NA right here in Anaheim and LA, and really big biker gangs, born-again revival churches called Set Free. Back in the day, it was kind of a big deal. Took over Anaheim with like thousands of biker gangs that found Christ and were getting sober. But then they'd all go eat donuts and smoke tobacco and then feed these other habits. And so I saw these cycles just repeat itself over and over with my own family, from addiction to just poor nutrition to a neglectful just awareness and consciousness of like what the body is and what we need to be doing to take care of it. And so I left the city. I left California, went to Oregon, and started working with Paul Stamets at Fungi Perfecti Laboratories while he was doing Defense Department contracting for the Project BioShield program that tested over 200,000 samples against smallpox viruses, vaccinia viruses, cowpox viruses, orthopox, and coronaviruses, and all the such, the potentially weaponized viruses. George Bush funded over $5 billion to the Project BioShield, the DoD, the USAMRID, and the CDC and the NIH. I worked in those labs. I became, basically sort of a Paul's lackey in ways, and I became aware of a lot of things that most people are unaware of in the realm of medicine, antiviral, anti-cancer research, neurodegenerative diseases and disorders that can be corrected with natural products, and I really felt like compelled that I would go in this direction. I helped some people that were at my mom's church when I was about 16, 17, Alzheimer's patients that I harvested some lion's mane and from the oak woodlands in Central California and brought it to them, and they began to consume it. It only took about a month to repair his really, really terrible Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, sudden onset that it resulted from a car accident, actually, an impact injury. He couldn't, Uncle Dick, he couldn't look straight. His eyes were always shaking. His hands were shaking. He couldn't really formulate words and solid sentences. And then when I came back about a month later after they ate a lion's mane about the size of a beach ball, he was totally himself. I knocked on the door. He's, Joseph, how's it going? Oh, where's Mabel? Like, oh, she's in the back with the white peacock pens getting eggs. And I'm like, whoa. And so that was the first time that I had ever seen the power of this kind of medicine, and I dedicated my life to it. It has not been an easy road. My health has been a pretty serious passion of just repairing my own problems: ulcers, diverticulitis, GERD symptoms, acid reflux, candida, shingles issues on my backside, on my hip, and that came on fairly, right around 27 or so. And so there's several things that were coming on that I shouldn't be, illnesses I shouldn't be getting until I'm in my 70s, right? And so I began to try to figure out how to repair that. I was at the top of the nutraceutical industry with the biggest cordyceps manufacturers, biggest mushroom producers, biggest, herbalists and professionals in the academic field and industry. And so I had my like apex of like all of this information and all of these products that I just spent thousands of dollars and years of time on, and none of them did anything for me. And all kinds of other people were like, oh, that really worked for me, that this thing, this product, oh, this diet, that diet, oh, this juicing thing, or oh, this master cleanse. It works for a lot of people. And to be honest with you, in the end of it, after I've gone through all of those, and as a biologist, microbiologist, I really began to understand the simplicity of the issue that we're not addressing. I met a gentleman that is actually a board member of the Buckminster Fuller Institute, and he's in charge of what's called the EPIC Fund. It's a $600 million fund for funding sustainable projects. A good friend of mine. And he looked at me when I had first met him, and his first question was not, oh, how was your day? It's nice to meet you. What's your name? Or his first question was, what is food? Like, it's nice to meet you too. And so I was like, okay, well, food is fiber, and it's not food for you, it's food for the microbes that you are feeding. You are not what you eat, you are what is eating you. So choose your microbes wisely and protect your cells, my friends. And really, when it comes down to that, that's what you're looking at the basis of health. After I began to develop some of these formulations for my own health issues, because I kind of ran to the end of the line, and I started to develop the alkaline water, which we call Luna, and it was basically a liquid crystal that was based on magnesium, boron, and lithium bicarbonates. Even though it has potassium and sodium bicarbonates and other alkali elements, the magnesium, the lithium, and the boron bicarbonate does not exist in a solid powder form. It doesn't exist in a crystal form unless it's a liquid form. So that means that we were meant to get these substances in our water. The body can only absorb magnesium with a bicarbonate ion. So if you take magnesium chloride salts, or you take magnesium sulfate like Epsom salts, your body has to absorb it and break those bonds apart, and then go find a bicarbonate from your kidney or your pancreas or your bones, and then stick it together with the magnesium in order to absorb it. So there's a lot of work the body has to do to absorb something, and instead you just want to give it the form that it is naturally needs it in. So I started to do that and created Luna, and realized that I resolved a lot of my acid reflux issues, my ulcers, my diverticulitis, the shingles, all of those things immediately started to dissipate and go away. I could breathe again, which was like in a swimming pool. Like if I went a quarter of the way across the pool, I was out of breath. And then after this, I was able to go back and forth like I was when I was younger. And so just oxygen absorption, saturation was that was a big indicator for me. I was like, wow, I can hold my breath for like 10 times longer than I was able to before I did that. And I did live blood analysis to see my blood cells, and the issues that I was seeing under the microscope were terrible. They looked like smashed oatmeal. And then when I started doing my Luna, the blood cells looked normally formed, and the T cells were functional and active, macrophage were fine, and the blood plasma was clean. And so I started to develop the water formulation based on Mount Shasta springs and the sacred springs of the headwaters there with the tribes that I've sat with and been doing Sundance with for many, many years. And Crater Lake and Siskiyou.
How did the Sundance did you start doing a Sundance prior to discovering this stuff, or was it?
It was all in conjunction. It's interesting that you asked that, because really all this stuff started when I ended up having a real terrible falling out with Paul Stamets and John Holliday and a bunch of industry players. People were we won't get into it. It was just a terrible situation and very dangerous for everybody, and there's a lot of under the covers kind of stuff going on in those circles that most people are not aware of on Bioneers or TED Talks, right?
Yeah.
Shit you're not going to hear on the internet. So there was all kinds of craziness that happened with them. Paul had to fire everybody or else they were all going to go to prison, and it was a giant craziness. I ended up having to find myself in a pretty hard spot. All of a sudden, we were working with United Nations, 57 countries, HIV, hepatitis C medications, from medicinal mushrooms, and I was feeling like I was doing something in the world. And then everything kind of collapsed. I lost my family, my kid's mother, my kids, of course, property and businesses. And found myself pretty much without anything. They pretty much gutted me and took everything, even the dog in the truck. It's like a country song, right? Waiting to happen.
I've been there.
So,
I get it.
yeah. So I was just like, all right. They took.
Oh, no,
I didn't take your truck.
I'm not talking about her. I'm just talking about like
Being homeless and destitute.
I'm talking about the government. I'm talking about like,
been there.
About paying your saxophone for dinner.
I got it.
I'm just talking about losing everything.
Yeah, no, losing everything. Yeah,
That's all I'm
losing
talking
everything.
about, losing everything.
Yeah, no, and I've been there.
She was
and
awesome.
Yeah, no, it was super rough, and so I found my. But yeah, we've all been there. We've all lost our asses, I'm sure, once or twice in life, and that's what makes you stronger. But I found myself with the tribes and elders that were tending sacred fire. It's in the Siskiyou Mountains, 365 days a year, 24/7. We didn't let that fire go out, and so that's what I found myself doing.
And you actually did the Sundance where you hang.
Yeah, it started
for
with
4
fire
days.
tending, and then had my visions, and then the visions led to the inevitable uncoding of the universe and life, and then Sundance was just another aspect of learning the depth of. Yeah, I ended up tending fire for 10 years before I ever stepped up on the arbor.
Oh wow! Okay.
For more than 10 years, 15 years before a good long while.
Okay.
Good long while I was in the mountains doing stuff that most people would probably never see in their life for the most part. And learning from medicine men and women that have been doing this for tens of thousands of years, and learning all kinds of things that I just would have never learned in school or from any academic institutions or pharmaceutical, sciences or anything like that. And so I began to see the issues. I see a lot of sick medicine people too. I see a lot of sick doctors. I see a lot of sick patients on both ends. The medicine men's and women's patients are sick, and the doctor's patients are sick, and no one's really getting the help that they need. And I'm not myself included. And I started to see that, and that's when I began to, really start to dive down the water, and found out the water is life, and there's no question about that. You learn that in Sundance very quickly. 4 days, no food, no water, pierced up to a tree from your chest, having to dance for 4 days and blow out of a dry eagle bone whistle.
Wow.
It'll teach you appreciation for water. Yeah, you're done. You're done. There's nothing left. You can cry, you can't bleed, you can't swallow. You're like a dog chew. Your tongue is a dog chew toy. It's leather. It's rough. Yeah. No food, piercing. That doesn't hurt. There's no pain there. That's all fine and then like water. That's the most painful thing you will ever understand without water. That's the worst pain you'll ever understand. But then there's also the humility, because you learn that water, you can hear it trickling. You see the dew, and you could drink it. You could go and do that and save your life, But that's not part of the ceremony. You just have to sit with it and not go like an animal to it, And you have to just allow that control, self-control, when your life is on the line. It's hard to control your actions. And so there was a lot I learned there, and the medicines that I learned were super powerful, and I started to see a lot of the different foods that were eaten, a lot of the different tubers and the roots that we ate regularly, and I started to see a lot of this. I went out on my friend's cannabis farm in 120 degree weather one day, and I got beat by the sun, and my lips were cracking, and my body was hurting, and everything was out of whack. pH was off. I was stinking like a dead animal. Everything was wrong. And the shingles was breaking out, and everything was just, my stomach was burning. I was burping acid. It was miserable.
Your lips?
My lips were literally cracked to the point where they were like lobsters. you know, like lobster tails. They were cracked right open. I didn't know what to do. I was drinking Luna. It didn't work. And I was like, whoa, it's always worked before. And I went to my lab, and I have, you know, all these products out on the shelf. And I saw psyllium husk fiber, hemp fiber, and I had a protein fiber in my Luna, right? And I was like, oh, let me just put this together and stick it together. And I made this gnarly, terrible tasting concoction. It was not fun to drink, but it was, my body wanted it. And I drank it, and within a matter of minutes, my lips went plush and I wasn't dehydrated, and all of a sudden the pain stopped immediately. And I drank another one, and by the end of that, when I wiped it from my lips, all the dead skin just went right off, and I had fresh, plush lips out under it. And so it was it happened like right away, and I've done a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of products, and I never had an effect like that. And that's when it took me like 2 years with my business partner Evan to design the formulation to create Luna, which is not just a few little fibers. You know, you're dealing with a whole host of different fibers, fruit fibers, plant fibers, seed fibers, root fibers, mushroom fibers. And it's a whole complex of different prebiotic carcinostatic fibers that help to sequester heavy metals and sequester, you know, carcinogens and cancer cells. Like sucks it like a magnet, right? That's just the nature of it. And so then we put probiotics in it, and we flavored it and put a bunch of other supplements. So it's actually a fiber delivery system. And if you were to buy this product in capsule form, like all the mushroom product that's in there and the amount of capsules you have to pay for, you'd be paying for hundreds of dollars of capsules of any of these products in this
don't even
form.
really do
that don't do it because you're dealing with a little capsule. It's not going to actually do anything to your giant gut
or more.
Whereas this actually can fill your gastrointestinal tract with all of the supplementation at one time to ferment the probiotics in a pH balanced medium that starts to repair the damage in the lining and chase out all of the yeasts and all the different bacteria that like that anaerobic acidic fiber deplete environment with rich, you know, processed sugars. Or even if we're natural and we're drinking kombucha and we're drinking, you know, we're lemon juice every morning and we're doing apple cider vinegar, those are acids. If you put that in your eyeball, it will burn you. If you have chapped lips and rub any of those things on your lips, it will burn your lips. And if your guts are burned, you don't want to put acids in there. If your if you got a sunburn on your skin, you don't want to rub lemon juice on it, right? You don't want to rub vinegar on it. You don't want to rub kombucha on it. It will burn, right? And so we have to understand the difference between acids and bases. Super simple. And that's why we balance the pH of a swimming pool. That's why we balance the pH of a soil, of a garden. That's why we balance the pH of our soaps, because it can throw our own body's pHs off, especially in our reproductive organs, which can cause havoc, right? And so all of this really began to make sense that not if people are like, oh, why would I take this product? And I'm like, it's not product, it's your requirement for daily life. You like air, like water, fiber. If you look up the word nutrient in the thesaurus, the first words that it uses to describe that is fiber, minerals, supplement. That's the definition of nutrient, right? And so when we're talking about nutrition, if we're not talking about fiber and minerals and water, like, then we are missing the boat. If we're talking about, you know, frequency machines, and we're talking about all these therapies over here, we're talking about all this other stuff, and we missed watering the houseplant and it has died. We have missed the
Or if you're watering the houseplant with water that's killing the houseplant.
Well, that's killing the houseplant, right. It's not balanced and it's not, exactly.
I've done that a couple times in the garden.
Sure, because you can definitely change the chemistry of the water. No water is equal. You know, the water out of this fountain is different than the water that's coming out of that faucet. That's different than the water that's coming out of the toilet. That's different than the water that's coming out of the, you know, the bottle that's coming out of Mount Shasta, that's coming out of Mount St. Helens, that's coming out of Mount Fiji. These are all very different chemistries. Water is not just water, right? And that's why we developed this so that we can grow spring water on tap from any filtered water source and basically produce the basic requirements for what natural spring water is. And then you have your fiber that's able to hold that water, like soil in a potted plant that holds the water for the roots of the plant. Our neurons go into the gut and literally are dipping the nerves from our spinal cord, from our brain, down into the roots of our intestines, and it needs soil. It needs fiber. That's what soil is fiber, right? Complex carbohydrates. It's what it's made of. And the probiotics are what generate the energy in order to feed our brain. If we don't have those, our neurocatecholamines are off, dopamine's off, serotonin's off, hormones are off, all these things are off, and then all those parasites want to come and take over the body and want to make you crave all kinds of things because they like the dopamine. They want you to go for the heroin, they want you to go for the cocaine, they want you to go for the chocolate, they want you to go for the gambling, they want you to go for all of these things that are going to stimulate dopamine because that's what they thrive on. They eat the dopamine because they're going to go head for the brain and eventually take over the brain once they've conquered all the other organs in the body, right? And they become strong enough. The yeast, like Candida, are neurotropic. They'll cause brain infections. Most people on HIV don't die from HIV. They die from Candida, candidiasis. They die from staphylococcal or pneumococcal infections, opportunistic infections that eat the body when it can't defend itself, right? And so it's these things that are very basic for human existence. It's not like, oh, I don't need that fiber because I already, eat plenty of shredded mini wheats, like it's definitely one of those things that I think people think like, oh, I don't need that, I'm not sick, I feel healthy. It's like, no, it's like,
because I was eating all raw foods.
Right.
I was eating all raw vegan.
There's
I'm like,
not a lot of fiber in
I don't need, literally the day after taking the fiber, I'm like, whoa, I've never had such a clean poop, and I've never had so much energy from the fiber in the water.
Yeah,
just
and
together.
that's all it
And
takes.
I've been craving hard kombuchas like every day.
Yeah,
First day I started taking them,
yeah,
since not even one craving for it.
yeah. And exactly, because once you balance the pH and once you create a new environment, they can't exist. I always describe it like mosquitoes and stagnant water. Like, they'll be there. You can put chlorella, you could put like iodine in there. You could try to put alcohol, or try to put like some superfood. Yeah. No. Just kick the rock out of the way and let the flow of the river take it, and they can't exist there anymore, right? And that's
without the fiber, none of that really
can
does
move
much. Yeah.
Right, without the fiber, exactly. And the fiber is what keeps the movement moving through the body like a river stream, instead of it stagnating for days and rotting in the gut and then creating parasites that breach out of the colon wall and start eating our organs and shit.
Yeah.
And they go down to give us athlete's foot, they go up to give us yeast infections, they go up to give us respiratory issues or sinus issues or brain neurological issues, right? So there's quite a bit of
I'm curious about the mushroom fiber because I feel like that has like a special charge to it. The fact that you use like actual mycelium fiber in the product.
Yeah, it's huge difference than any other fiber. It's the soil. The soils of the earth are fungi. That's what makes soil is a fungi. And so when we're saying soil or fungi, we can also say fiber is interchangeable. And mushroom fibers in particular are unique because they're made of what are called protein-bound polysaccharides and beta-glucan complexes, which stimulate modulate immune function. So it feeds the immune cells. The immune cells eat it like Pac-Man, and they're just like, ooh, look at this little fiber sugar. And they eat that sugar, and it activates them, and then they become active and start scouring for cancer cells, or they start scouring for waste in the system and eliminating it. Because it turns them on. Like the Pac-Man eats the little, the thing, and he goes into super Pac-Man mode, right? That's basically what mushroom sugars or mushroom fibers
So it's like
do.
a highly intelligent form of fiber, similar to like in that Fantastic Fungi movie.
Correct.
Where you see the communication that's happening all throughout the soil.
Right.
It activates that in your body.
Yeah, and it'll upregulate your immune system or downregulate. So some people have arthritis. Their immune system is too active. The inflammation is not ever turning off, so it'll help to turn it down. But if someone has an immunocompromised issue like HIV or another issue where their immune system is low, then it'll boost T cells up. So it knows how to boost T cells up and boost them and drop them down because it's an adaptogen, a biological response modifier, they call it. Whatever, yada. There's all kinds of things.
And those polysaccharides are pretty rare in our diet, in our food supply.
Right.
I think that's pretty much the only.
Yeah, they basically only exist in fungi and in algae and in some types of grains. Not many, like quinoa, I think, have some polysaccharide complexes and stuff, but it's mostly algae and fungi. They're the rulers of the ocean and the land. And
Isn't it more more digestible, more absorbable with fungi than algae?
And that's a good question because the mushrooms itself require breaking down with heat treatment or some kind of chemicals, if you would, like limestone or some potash or something from an ash pit or something. Like traditionally, you'd be cooking your mushrooms over a fire, and they would naturally get some ash and some, neutralization. But the mycelium is a lot more bioavailable because it's not all woody or it's not all thick and leathery. It's totally, much more bioavailable. So you can take that raw, and that's one of the reasons why, why we do.
That's why this is what you're.
We
doing
use,
like
yeah, exactly. And so the ability to take the product. Again, and not just be reliant on apple fiber, because that's sugary, right? It's too sugary. It's too acidic. It wants to ferment real quick. People make beer out of apple cider, right? Like, you make alcohol. It's easy to ferment an apple because it's so sugary, right? Fungi
or grapes,
right? You're dealing with a much hardier log on the fire as opposed to a piece of newspaper, right? It's done, and then fungi are sort of like your oak log, if you would, in the fiber complex. And so really when you're dealing with addiction, when you're dealing with alcoholism, when you're dealing with sugar cravings, it's all the same thing. Typically those are yeasts, and those are the yeasts that are determining whether you want to crave something or not, because they want to eat. But when you kill the yeast and when you kick them out of your body, like you said, those cravings stop. And they can't survive in an aerobic environment. They just don't like it. Once you shift the pH and give them an aerobic medium, and the probiotics just out-colonize them, they're just like, fuck this, I'm out. And so
it speaks for your brain almost.
Yeah, exactly. It speaks for your brain. And we call them behavior-modifying parasites that literally can control host behavior and tell them turn left, turn right, have sex over there, eat that food over there, go and sleep over here, go and and do whatever, go to that casino and go and boost the dopamine. Like, they know how to create the dopamine responses, and they just like scientists mess with mice, to go them in a maze and go and get through this way, give them a cheese over here, give them a little reward over here, ding a bell over here, and they like train these
parasites are doing to us.
Yeah, they want it all.
They're running our brains.
Yeah, and so these creatures are very old. They're millions of billions and billions of years old. They ate the dinosaurs. They eat everybody. They turn everything back into the soil. They always have. And so there you have pathogens, and you have your symbionts, the ones that work for you, that benefit you, and then the ones that want to eat your brains.
Your question?
Oh, and is this a product that someone can buy right now?
We bought
Yeah.
This is for
They
you.
bought
I
those.
just meant, I know you're giving me one, but I'm
Yeah,
just saying,
liquidphi.com is our website. And currently we're getting picked up by the Celtic Sea Salt Company because Selena, the CEO,
She's great. I love her.
oh, she's super sweet. Yeah, she had health issues for like a long time with her digestive problems, and then a friend of ours turned her on to the product. They met at an airport or something, and then she called us up. She's like, "You saved my life. I'm actually having solid stools for the first time in like 40 years."
Wow.
And so it was like, so then she's like, "I'm taking all your products on the market. We're gonna put them all,
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Oh,
that
cool."
answers my question the other day of like getting them into stores.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
She's got
And so-
a great distribution.
Super distribution.
Really great.
How does she feel about your table salt alternative? I'm curious.
Oh, it's actually really cool because they've been
Really
working
awesome.
for the last 5 years on an alkaline salt product that they paid some stupid amount of money to
And
some
you have
French
one.
researchers that haven't been able to do it, and we've had ours already. And now she's starting to experiment with some of these. Right now, their biggest sellers are their alkaline Hawaiian maca salts, and that's what they're like. They have like a whole host of. She gave me a whole kit, like you sent, with like thousands of dollars of analytical the analysis of all of the minerals from all over the world of every salt you ever heard of and never heard of.
Wow.
Super awesome.
Amazing.
So I've just been testing everything, and so I'm going to use probably the Hawaiian salts in the alkali salts in the future, so
Really?
that we
Oh,
can
give you more
combine
flavor,
them.
too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So you
I
get the
love that.
chloride,
Fuck yeah.
all of the
Excuse me.
small amount of minerals, and you
Yes.
get the you'll get the
you-
alkalinity.
Have you tried cooking with the salt?
Yeah,
No,
that's what we just did last night.
It's more like, but we didn't cook. We made.
On top,
We
yeah.
did some raw kind of type stuff.
It changes the flavor
Yeah.
of stuff from soy sauce, hot sauce, lemon juice,
Yeah.
neutralizes all of it.
Wow.
And as soon as you put some salt in them, they'll start fizzling because it neutralizes the acids.
Yeah,
Well-
I put it in my kombucha, this culture drink that I got. It's matcha.
Oh, it fuzzed and fizzed out crazy, huh?
It made it taste better.
Well, that
Yeah.
was the thing that tripped me out. That he was saying is like everybody thinks that sea salt is like the thing these days, but then like it's hard for the body to process, or at least
Yeah, because we can't survive on seawater. we'll die. We're not saltwater creatures. We're freshwater creatures, and so we need freshwater salts, not saltwater salts.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Himalayan salts and all the other salts from all around the world that are being harvested from the sea, is that those are all sodium chloride, predominant 27% sodium chloride.
Isn't Himalayan, isn't pink salt halite? Isn't that mined?
Yeah, I thought that was
It's mined from a mine in Pakistan, but it's an ancient seabed. It used to be a seabed, just like Morton Sea Salt Company in Utah.
Yeah,
that used to be an
Salt Lake
ocean.
City.
Yeah, like these salt deposits are from ancient oceans.
So that's sodium
Chloride.
Chloride, and this salt is
Bicarbonates. So you have sodium, potassium,
Oh, so it's
magnesium, boron, and
minerals that the
zinc
body
bicarbonates.
Which one are you going to add to this again?
I'm sorry?
Which one are you going to add to it again? From Selena's?
It's like
Her
baking soda,
Makai Hawaiian salt.
Hawaiian
So it is a chloride, but I only use like 10%, and then it's 90% bicarbonates.
Then it's still like straight. It's still
Yeah.
alkaline.
It's still an alkaline, natural
That'll
magnesium-rich
make the
alkaline
taste go
salt.
up a whole
Yeah,
other level. That'll
exactly.
become
Then you'll have a little
it'll be
more of a salt
It'll be
flavor.
a salt.
Yeah, you'll have a salt flavor in it. And so there's aspects there when you're dealing with the salt crystals and salt chemistry, mineralization, and how you build bone and teeth and what you need to do. Really, you just need water, alkali minerals, and your fiber, which is a prebiotic, and the probiotics will naturally want to grow, but if you put them in there to boost them up, it helps, right? So that's why we just made this product that makes it easy for people to use, and they're the baseline fundamental requirements for life, you know, and
That's
then you
why
can
you
put
added
all kinds of
probiotics.
stuff. You're right, and then you can put all kinds of stuff on top of it
Yeah.
if you want,
Yeah.
but that's the foundation
Bonus.
of like, this is your baseline health.
Yeah.
If we don't do this, and again, I wish that there was a way that it wasn't just like, oh, I'm selling a product. I wish I could say, hey, go out to the old growth forest and like harvest up some tubers and like go and make yourself a rich, fiber-rich, dinner. But realistically, it's just not. We're just not in that state in history right now in the world.
Especially in LA.
Especially in LA, yeah, exactly. People are just going to need a nice pouch that they can take on an airplane or take in a bag or in their purse or whatever, and be able to take a filtered water bottle and put a few drops or a little powder in there and make their alkaline water.
People are very happy to make things convenient.
Yeah, so it's
Yes.
convenient. It makes it way
It's called,
easier.
evolution.
So
Yeah, everything's
my,
so easy. We
my
collaborate.
colon hydrotherapist said, "What are you doing differently?" And
Yeah.
that's why I asked
Oh,
you
really?
to bring
Wow.
it up.
That's
She's like,
awesome.
whatever that is really helping.
Yeah,
I'm like,
nice.
damn, okay.
That's cool.
And that she would know.
She would
She's
know.
got.
I want some now, please. And I was
She's
like,
looking at the
I'll get you
poop
some when
going
you
through the
can,
tube.
girl.
Yeah, and that's
very
what we
awesome.
find is that a lot. I had a colon hydrotherapist say the same thing when they were taking the product,
Yeah.
and they were like, "What is happening to their own body?" Because they know more than anything about the colon health. You know.
What I love about it is that after you explained to us we can combine the Luna and the Alka salts, and then we tasted it, then I was thinking like this science, like this heavy science, and then I was like, oh, everything else I do based on how it tastes.
Yeah.
I just make the water taste like
Good.
good, so that
was
it lights
pretty-
me up, so it feels
Yeah.
like electric, and
Yes,
like
and then it was funny because all of our hairs were standing up.
Yeah.
You know, when we hit the sweet spot, and like it just like goosebumps and everything comes up like right when you hit that like 108 ppm.
and it's
I
especially
agree
if you're tuned in and you're kind of you feel if you already feel your body, it makes it easy because you're just like, oh
that
this
works.
feels good, like
Yeah.
that's
I really
clearly
do agree.
giving me a lot of energy.
I really do agree with what you just said, because like I noticed that when I just poured the salt, when I didn't weigh it or didn't measure it, and I just poured the salt and poured them out, tasted it, and I was like, oh, I want a little more.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the most, like the intuitive
easiest
part
way
of
to
it,
intuitive
based
do it,
Yeah,
yes.
it's just
Yeah.
like
The-
easy,
the-
and it's right.
Yes,
You
it's
can
right.
tell.
It
You can
feels
tell.
right because your body tells you.
I'm winking at you.
Another thing that is, one of the things that I like to mention, which is kind of weird to mention, but is, I've always been curious how animals don't use toilet paper and how animals don't need to wipe.
Yeah.
And whether it's my own dogs or cats, or whether I'm in the woods and I look at all the animals that are all around me, from bears to cougars to to freaking raccoons to you name it, all the critters that are running around in the mountains out there. They don't make a mess when they go to the bathroom, and then their scat looks like soil. By the time it's done in a couple of days, it just starts growing berry bushes and shit.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
And what is the difference here?
Why do we have to lose all the water to flush?
Right? Why do we shit
And
in our
paper,
water?
it's all
And
kinds of
paper, yeah.
Right. What is the
We just need
deal
a whole
here?
forest and a whole stream.
Yeah, we just
to
need
wipe our
to
asses.
wipe our asses. It makes no sense. And so when I started to take the fiber and the Luna together is when I started to realize I didn't have to use toilet paper anymore, which was a super bizarre experience because I didn't expect that.
It's almost weird to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't use toilet paper.
That happened to me this morning,
No,
and I
'cause
was like, "What?
Yeah,
I've never in my
yeah.
life not."
Yeah.
You wipe once and
And it's
there's
like,
nothing there.
oh,
But
wait.
there's nothing there. Yeah.
What? And that's normal. That
Yeah.
because the whole world right now is having their immune systems leak out their ass.
Yeah.
And so if we're using toilet paper, our immune system is leaking out of our ass. And that is the reality of the COVID future that we saw when it went down and everyone bought the toilet paper out.
Yeah. Whoa.
So what was that about? What is that telling you about the immune system health of the nation?
Speaking of
Our-
health and nation, sorry,
Our gut, or like the
The microbes are like, oh shit, stock up on the toilet paper, guys.
I'm just curious, like, have you ever seen somebody take it and like someone with like bipolar or someone like with like some degenerative health thing like on the fiber and like have you witnessed dramatic results?
Huge. And I'm going to speak on a personal level, like my own mental health that I was realizing was being compromised because I was burning my gut and I didn't realize I was burning my brain at the same time.
Right.
And I started to notice my own mental health was deteriorating at a point, with a super low point actually, and everything was just crashing down around me and I was just like not in a good space.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, as soon as I put fiber in my body and as soon as I balanced my pH and as soon as I stopped leaking out my ass, I like immediately was fine. I didn't feel suicidal. I didn't feel depressed. I didn't even feel upset or angry at all the people that I should have felt upset and angry at.
Yeah.
And because my body was able to balance the nervous system, the endocrine system, the reticuloendothelial system, all these systems were able to actually cope. Right, with all of the issues.
You were literally and figuratively, or you were literally digesting on all levels. You were digesting the emotional, you were digesting the spiritual, you were digesting the physical.
Right.
And there was not, at the end of the day, you
it
were
was all
sleeping
energy,
well
and it was all
because
able
there was
to be,
nothing left to torture you at the end of the day. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when my gut is burning and I'm over here thinking of all the terrible things and how much I want to die, and then I'm like, wait a minute, it's because I'm hurting here.
Yeah.
And then when I stop hurting here, I don't feel that way. And so when I began to realize that myself, and I wrote my book, Biological Resonance, Thriving in a Radioactive Universe, for the purposes of looking at the mental health aspects of how these things work towards not just ameliorating issues like anxiety, OCD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, right? You name it, all the even Down syndrome, surprisingly, I came to find. Autism, huge effects, huge changes, because it's all neurological. If you stop the nerves from burning and being inflamed, everything chills out. The sunburn goes down. The trapped lips get healed, right?
And the inflammation in the brain.
And the inflammation in the brain reduces, and then you don't lose your mind all the time because your brain is inflamed. And you can look all this up, like medical journal of neuroinflammation. Like that's a huge. Like I was studying that before the journal ever came out, and I was like, it's neuroinflammation. And I wrote my book all about neuroinflammatory disorders and how the sun the sun can heal you or it can kill you, right? Depending on what you have in your body to absorb the energy from the sun, or from any other electromagnetic source, or any other chemical source, or heavy metal source. We can survive in the most hostile environments on the planet if we put the right things in our body. We can survive in the coldest places, in the hottest places, in the most humid places. We can survive in the darkest places, in the sunniest places. It doesn't matter. The driest places, the wettest places. We have the capability that when we put the right things in our body, we can survive anywhere and not die. We actually thrive. We get stronger. And look at all the traditional ancient cultures from around the world, and their people are strong. Our people in this domesticated, like we turn the wolf into a chihuahua kind of a society, we're seeing that in our health, and just like when we breed dogs, it's not any different. Their health starts to fall apart when we like turn them from a wild animal into like some crazy little pug-nosed thing that can't even breathe.
The Weston Price books are really good to show that too. The Weston Price books.
How the dental, everything.
The dental, people still started needing glasses. They started needing braces, or all of this stuff just changed.
Right.
What are those books?
Weston
Price.
Yeah, they were dentists and they were studying like the way our jaws have changed, like
So they look at tribal cultures that were eating certain
Right.
ways, and they look at their teeth, and they were like, "Huh, this is interesting. How all this is affecting all their health of all the." So they learned a lot from looking at the teeth from people all over the world and what they ate.
Because we're not eating enough fibers, because we're not chewing as much, and our jaws aren't as strong as what they used to be, because we're not chewing fibers. All of our foods are pretty much soft, and within 5 bites, you can pretty much swallow your food nowadays.
True.
At least in the U.S.
They actually
Less
now
than
make a little rubber thing that you can chew on
Yeah.
to exercise your jaw.
I saw
Right?
that.
I remember
yeah.
Victoria Botinka wrote about that in her book. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the Green Smoothie Revolution.
Yep,
thing,
yep.
because she was saying we don't even have the ability to chew the amount of greens we would need to have enough fiber.
Correct, because you don't get
There's no way
fiber
you-
from the
I
greens
haven't
above
seen
the ground.
Or Sergio,
Fiber comes from the tubers and the
I
roots
was
underground.
really into them when I was
Potatoes, yams.
Ah, which
Yucca.
is
The
why
roots.
even after all the years of raw foods,
You're eating
I
above
was
the ground. Yeah,
not-
and then the trees and the fruits and all that's hot and acidic, and it's all sugary. And then all this is not much fiber, but the fibery stuff is the tubers underground, the potatoes, the yams, the roots, vegetables, all the things that grow
Yucca.
hardy under the yucca we just ate.
And last
And-
night we mixed those with some fermented like vegetables, like cabbages and stuff, and some chlorella. And
Oh, perfect.
It was so good. It was like
Yeah.
and some other green blue spirulina.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt like I digested it so well, and I was like, wait, this isn't raw, and I'm digesting
And you
it
don't
super
have it
well.
gassy, and it's not
Yeah.
all stinky, and
Yeah.
it's not all funky
So-
because you pH'd it.
So tell them the difference between that fiber, your fiber, and traditional commercial available.
Traditional fibers like psyllium husk fiber or apple fiber, that you get on the markets, metamucil fiber. These are all typically empty fibers that don't have any pH buffer or balance, so they just go into the gut and they just wreak havoc and ferment and cause gas and diarrhea, bloating. That's why they say, oh, don't eat too much of this because it causes problems. And then they put all kinds of fake flavorings and additives and sugars, and so when that fiber it just becomes yeast food by the end of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, when I started to try those products, and I thought, oh, fiber is the key, and I started to eat all these fiber products, I'm like, that's off. And I started to be, well, no, I need my alkali salts. Let me buffer the pH. Where's my pH? Okay, where's my TDS and my what? Oh, wait a minute. Let me go ahead and fix that. And so,
Hopefully I won't have to use toilet paper.
yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because I know my mom had tried different fiber products and they weren't working.
rough.
And
They're
all the
rough.
doctors were
They
telling
taste
her
like
she
crap.
needed
This one
fiber.
I tasted, I'm like, I really like
So-
it.
I made
Yeah.
this for the people at the house, and they're like, "It's like
So is it
baby food."
organic?
Yeah, it's like baby food.
And then
It's
also
beyond
explain,
organic.
also
Well, it doesn't
explain
need to be organic.
What
the
makes
thing
this-
about
what makes it
probiotics.
Okay.
On why
Well, if
a
you
lot of
look
the
at any one of
probiotics
these
are
Right,
ingredients,
exactly.
like,
I'll
I don't
mention
know.
No, I'm talking about the psyllium, the
Psyllium.
fiber. What makes it special? Like, if I'm selling this product to somebody, like,
Oh, you mean the fact that it
Why-
has psyllium husk, but it also has the other stuff? You mean?
but no, you're telling me the fiber.
Typically,
so
if
why,
you go by
why
psyllium,
is your
if you-
fiber better? Than
Because we don't
any
just
other fiber that I
use
can buy?
psyllium husk. And it's like using newspaper to keep you warm in a fire, at a fire. Like you will
Yeah, but
say,
you just said that your fibers were better than other fibers that I could buy, whether it's
You look
psyllium or
at the-
whatever. But
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Is it organic? Like, what's my selling? What's my selling point that besides the fact that you're just saying that it's better? I mean,
it contains fruit fibers, plant fibers, and fungal-based medicinal mushroom fibers. A whole complex of very different fibers that are not just psyllium husk grass seed, right? And along with that, we also include probiotics. So you have your probiotic bacteria that eat the prebiotic fibers. Specifically,
so are those fibers the same mushrooms that I can just go buy?
yeah, and you'd
or
spend
Decepts or
hundreds of
whatever,
dollars.
the same
Yep, if you
thing?
went to the health food store and bought the amount of mushrooms that we have in here on the shelf, you'd spend hundreds of dollars.
They're not like brown mushrooms or shiitake mushrooms. Also,
Yeah.
like if you look
No,
at
I'm
each one
well
of these,
aware of lion's mane, cordyceps, and other mushrooms that are out there. But like, that's what I was selling this product to someone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, like,
Oh, I
what
think
would
I have a
I
good-
say to
so-
this person to make them feel
So-
like
yeah.
this product is worth spending this money on more than just going out and buying some mushrooms for myself.
I-
and some
Because they
psyllium
won't
and
find any
mixing
other
it up.
product
But
like it on
you know
the
what
shelf.
I would say? They would need to watch. Maybe not, but for me, watching Fantastic Fungi made all the difference when they show the way that the mycelium network communicates with everything in the earth. When they show these electrical impulses.
Active mushrooms than any other mushrooms that I can go buy?
If you go buy the cordyceps or lion's mane or any of the ingredients in here, they're going to sell you 30 grams for about $20 to $30 in the minimum. And so if you were to buy a pound of that, because the capsules, so 500 milligram capsules that people take.
Okay. That's not really true. I could go buy lion's mane on.
No, I think what he's saying
I can buy
is
like a pound of lion's mane for about $25
from Mushroom Harvest
online.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm just trying to talk from a person who's.
Well, you're probably one of those people that could make it yourself, really, because you're
so if you want to make it yourself,
you're probably one of the people that could make it.
If you did
yourself.
that, you would spend hundreds of dollars, probably about $1,000 to buy all the products in order to make this bag. Because that's what I do. I spend thousands of dollars just to be able to make bags of this. Because
but you're making hundreds of bags, not just one bag.
Right,
so you're
exactly.
getting wholesale prices.
So you would have to basically buy every one of these products individually, 25 here, 35 there, 45 here, and there's about 25 different products in here. By the end of it, you would have spent probably a good $500 to $600 buying all those separate products to mix them into this bag. Do you see what I'm saying? And so you can do it yourself. It'll be far more expensive, but then at least you can know how to do it, which is what I like to do.
Cost?
This is a $45 bag.
But it's free to you now.
Oh, I'm not worried about that. No, I'm just wondering if I was to sell this to, if I wanted to convince a friend to buy the product, and they're already
Specifically Albert.
Here's what I
savvy.
Specifically,
my
like one of my best friends
my
from
friend
birth.
wanted some, and she asked, and she's like, "Oh, that's kind of
Well,
expensive."
he's very savvy. He's very savvy about supplements. And
oh, great! All he needs to do is read the ingredients and then try a glass, and that's all.
His mother has serious lesions in her spine, and she's been given basically a death sentence of 6 months to live. So I was wondering if this product would actually help her or not, but he's going to be like...
I could. Albert's one of my best friends from my team.
But he's going to be a bit drilling
he's someone that if you
why
talk
would I
to,
buy this product?
I'd probably want you to talk to him so he would understand it.
Or we'll share this, because I think if he listens to this, I think he'll catch on, because there's some things that he explained that are if you really clear.
And I seriously love the way it tastes.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to sell anyone on anything.
Oh no!
I mean, if anybody wants to buy it, they buy it. If they don't want to buy it, they don't have to buy it. I don't need to convince anybody.
Trying to convince my friend that this
not.
product might actually help his mother.
Mm-hmm. If you have to convince him,
supplement savvy. That's why I was just trying to come.
Well,
I would say that if he's someone that you have to convince,
supplement savvy, then he'll know
what's
quality
in
there. Of the ingredients.
We can share this recording with him so he can.
Because I do that.
I
look at the ingredients and I'm like, I can get this shit at Mountain Rose Herbs or on this. I do that all the time.
Yeah, go do it.
Instead of buying the supplements, a lot of times, like at the health food store, I'll order shit and I'll just get it all bulk.
Well, yeah,
and then I have a fucking herb.
That's
full,
what he's
like
gonna think. Because he's gonna sit there and look at this and go,
yeah.
And maybe it's not for him,
Why can't I do this
then maybe he could
myself?
put it together for himself.
Yeah, he can.
Yeah.
But you guys should also listen to why about
really
the
smart,
probiotics. Why this is better than just
The
probiotics.
difference is there are like specific probiotics that you've studied that you like have been.
Yeah, this is all
been in the
not.
lab
This
that
is
you-
not something that.
Well, because you're a scientist.
Yeah, I was gonna say if someone wants to go and buy cordyceps from some of the manufacturers that I know, because I've worked in those labs. Just because you can buy cordyceps or a lion's mane or any of these things from off the shelf, I'm just gonna say, like someone that's worked in the industry commercially, you want to know how your product is being made and who's making it, because everything that's out there, but the majority of 90% of all the mushroom products, I wouldn't put in my body because I know what they do to it. And like even the most of the cordyceps producers, the biggest cordyceps manufacturer in the country, in the world for that matter, dips his in bleach, and it's certified organic. Hey, yep, it's
It's like not all water tastes the same when you buy a bottle of water.
So everyone's gonna say, I've got cordyceps and certified organic right here. It says on the package. I'm like, yeah, I show you pictures of them dipping it all in bleach, like metric tons, So I know the manufacturers. I know what they're doing. I know what they're making. I have relationships developed with the people, with the quality control. That's my background. And so I'm not a salesman. I'm a scientist. And so when I formulate these things, or when I'm supplying from the different suppliers or the producers of these products, if I'm not producing it myself, It's these kinds of things that people can do it themselves and do whatever they want, but for me, I have a lot more. I'm a lot more careful with what I put in myself. If I'm going to poison myself, I poison myself on purpose. But if I'm going to heal myself, I heal myself on purpose. And usually if I'm going to design a product, it's going to work like a light switch. So I always like to say, like, if I hire an electrician and I have him do electrical and I turn on the light switch and he says, oh, you need to wait 30 to 60 days for that light to turn on. Trial period, a protocol, you know? I'm going to say, I will need another electrician.
Exactly.
Right? Because you obviously don't know how the electrons move the speed of light. That should happen right when I turn it on. And that's why with these products, when you put them in your body and they immediately trigger responses, either flushing you out, you have to urinate, you all of a sudden have to do something, and then all the things start changing. Within a day, all of a sudden, your digestion changes. In a couple of days, all of a sudden, you don't have to use toilet paper. It radically changes people's comprehension of what medicine is because they start to see the actual effects and the changes. And when I initially started to do this, like I said, with other products, so people, like, that's what I was doing. I was just like, let me look at all these other hemp products or these fiber products or psyllium products. And I went and tried to do that. And so initially I put hemp fiber in here, for instance, and everyone's like, yeah, I want the hemp fiber. See that? It says certified organic hemp fiber. This shit's amazing. Hemp fiber has fats that go rancid. And so if you leave that product sitting out, it's going to go rancid. Most of the hemp fiber products out there are already rancid by the time you buy them. And rancidity is one of the hemp seed, especially.
Oil and hemp seed do
Oh yeah.
Oh my God!
smell it.
Oh yeah, it goes rancid so fast, and so it's like these kinds of things that we were like, nope, we're not doing the hemp fiber. We're taking that out, and we're replacing it with the apple fiber, you know, or things like that. To where we're like, okay, we don't want to poison people when we're telling them we're giving them medicine, right? And that's like, and it's these things like that are not so obvious. They're not easy to just like deduce by marketing or by reading a label unless you have done the chemistry yourself and you've done the formulations yourself and you've tested on yourself and a whole host of other people. And then you start to go, okay, wait a minute, let's refine this, make it better. So people can do I encourage people to do the crude, you know, make it themselves. You can do it yourself.
But I have to say, you can tell a lot about how the product works by the glow and physique of the person who's made it. And you, I mean, there, you definitely.
I did just to make
you know,
sure. Like,
a lot of people, I'm sure, would think that you were in your 20s, and you know, and you're.
I got a 19-year-old daughter.
Yeah. So
most people would not guess that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have gray hair, and I had a lot of I've been roughed up by this, but it's totally changed the clock for me, because I was like, when I started to do this, and I got my ribs fixed, and I got my digestion like back in order, my nervous system started to repair itself. All of a sudden, all the issues I had, my BO went away, all of these other issues went away. Dandruff went away, shingles went away. Sciatic nerve pain went away, my back inflammation and pain went away, and my neck and my shoulders and my lower back. I mean, I had a lot of things that just like disappeared and vanished. And when it came down to that, when I started to consider like, wow, I haven't felt this good since I was, and I'm like, I've never felt this fucking good. If I think back, I've been in pain my whole life. You know, like I'm not in pain. And so I look back, and when I was a kid, I was in serious pain. Throughout my puberty, I had broken ribs, or dislocated ribs in the front and the back, and I went through puberty that way. It was super painful.
Wow.
Super painful. You know, like it was not fun. And I was in a pain level of like a threshold of 1 to 10. I was usually at a good 10 on average, and then that was a good day. And then and the bad days were like 15, where I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. It was so painful. You know, like I felt like this.
Yeah.
Will they let me back?
Are they open?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I need to go pee.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording
let's stop
now.
that. That's
But
good.
thank you so much,
You're
Joseph.
welcome.
How do you
Thank
pronounce
you.
your last name?
Cerecedes. It'll keep it easy.
Explain to them before she shuts it off about the probiotics, why a lot of probiotics only use a couple of strains.
The different probiotic strains that we use specifically are acid tolerant, and so they are able to survive the digestive system, specifically the hydrochloric acid in the stomach. Yeah. And so they can actually make it down to the colon and colonize the colon. What's actually really interesting about the colonization effect is that with the fiber, they're protected inside of it. And so if you let your fiber sit for 10 minutes, like I showed you guys, to thicken, it's already started to crack and germinate. And the bacteria is already starting to become active and ferment. And so when you put it in your body, it's got a buffer so that the acid isn't going to harm it even further. So you have spore-based probiotics that actually survive into the colon. You have acid resistance probiotics that can survive the acid, and then you have the probiotic fibers with the pH buffer of the alkali salts to protect them, right? Which is the way the Mayans did it, the Aztecs did it, the Africans did it, you know, the traditional Chinese did it. When you're dealing with any tubers or roots and fire, you're using usually ash or limestone to boil stuff. And so it's called nixtamalization. It's how you make masa and tamales to make the tortillas, which is basically like the original masa was like the fountain of youth. And now we poisoned it with pork and lard and stuff. Yeah. But like tamales were like that key of the corn of unlocking the anti-aging components, like the nicotinamide riboside that the pharmaceutical industry is profiting billions of dollars on, anti-aging drugs right now. The Mayans already did that
thousands of years ago.
Thank you,
Joseph.
Love you.